Assalamu alaikum.
Peace be upon you all.
Welcome to the high-level panel on girls' education. The panel today will hopefully take an interesting twist to what we all know to be true, and unfortunately, hope wasn't. As we all know, girls' education has been an issue for generations upon generations. This permanent issue has been a main focal point of many government policies and has been an area of extreme concern for every society as we see it today. Patriarchy goes beyond what we know to be in the structural element. The patriarchy permeates caste, religion, it looks beyond economic status, it permeates every part of our society. And being able to tackle these systemic issues will allow the world at large to capitalize on a greater value in being able to truly see economic value from half of the population. In this high-level dialogue, it's important that we explore practical ways that we can think about these patriarchal structures and ways in which that together we can set up new systems to challenge the existing structures and build new ways forward. I'd like to welcome our panelists today to the stage. I'm joined today by His Excellency Jakaya Kikwete, former President of Tanzania and the board chair of the Global Partnership of Education. We'll also be joined by Dr. Kuyoki Abu-Kuyok, who's the Undersecretary of the Ministry of General Education and Instruction in South Sudan. We'll also be joined virtually by Dr. Kombo Bolibari, the Head of Education at the Islamic World Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Inshallah. And Imtithal Mahmoud, UNHCR Goodwill Ambassador. And last but not least, Dr. Muhammad Farsi, Senior Cultural Consultant of ICAD. Thank you all. I'd like to open this session after we get detangled.
Won't take off this.
Won't take off the
Yeah. Doesn't
Technical support.
Yes. now I look fine.
Your Excellency, we'd like to open the panel with a question directed to you. In your very vast experience in dealing with very, very systemically entrenched issues, such as education, what is the role and leadership from your perspective in furthering education of girls in these deeply patriarchal societies and political structures?
Well, thank you, moderator. Let me echo the presentation by the previous speaker that first, it is true that girls' access to education has been and continues to face hurdles. Of course, there are a number of factors, but I think I could single out 2 or 3 main ones. First, of course, in our part of the world, it is social-cultural, in the sense that many of our societies are patriarchal societies. And there is greater importance that is given to the boy child than it is given to the girl child. Well, there are false notions, but they say, why educate a girl? He'll get married, become a wife, a mother. He'll just be cooking. So this is one aspect. And the second, of course, in families that are poor, when faced with poverty, and they have choices to make about who to educate, who to give priority for education. When they have a boy child and a girl child, the option will always be with a girl child. Because there is this assumption, as I said, that a woman is already safe. If she gets married, then she's fine. But if the boy doesn't get education and she has to take care of a family, we have to empower the boy so that he can assume the responsibilities that is expected of him in society. Of course, the third factor is, which encumber girls, there is the safety aspects. Of course, in many of our places in Africa, schools are always far from where the people live. So the assumption that a girl can walk 5 miles to school and come back safely. So there is the fear of the safety of the girls. So they would always prefer boys. They think they will take care of that. Of course, again, is the environment in schools, the school facilities. Some of the school facilities are not very friendly, especially for the hygienic needs of girls when they have come of age. So when these facilities are not there, there isn't enough water, it becomes a disincentive for girls to go to school. So these are some of the major ones. Of course, there are many more that we can talk about. Of course, we have to make sure that girls get the education. And as such, we have to address all these problems that encumber girls from accessing education. In my view, one, of course, we have to continue to educate society that the girl's place is not only in the kitchen. Girls can do many more things. They are just as human as the boys. They have same brains. It's a question of exposure and opportunity. If you give girls the opportunity, our Minister of Education here is a professor. He's a professor. She's teaching she's been teaching at the university until they took her out of the university. And there are men who have not been able to be professors, but she has managed to become a professor. So you can see, if you give women the opportunity, they will just excel as boys do. So we have to continue to impress our societies along those lines. But it is the responsibility of governments to put in place policies and measures that are going to promote equity in education, that boys and girls should have equal access to education, policies that are going to address all these idiosyncrasies, stereotypes that put in. Policies that are going to make sure that schools are friendly. So this where the governments are really proactive. And then policies that are going to, for example, when I was president, or the policy in the government in Tanzania is that we were quite keen on equity. We have equity, you should have equity in primary school, equity in secondary school. That's where this is the foundation. We have been able to attain that. The minister is there, she can tell. We have as many boys and girls in primary school. We have as many boys and girls in secondary school. If you take 40 boys in a class in you have to take 40 girls. We've been able to attain that. This is it's a deliberate policy of government. We've been having problems with higher education. I'm Chancellor of the University of Dar es Salaam. We've been having problems with tertiary education, where we have not been having as many girls as many is it girls in universities or ladies? So I don't know what is the right word, because but we have not been having as many female students as we have had. But we're making progress. Right now, Minister, she's the minister, she's the minister, I'm the chancellor, it is her ministry. We've been able to attain 47% now of enrollment of girls, of female students at the university. And I'm sure in a couple of years we may get to the 50-50%. So where there is deliberate action by governments to make sure that there is equity, it will happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. On the topic of ensuring that governments do their due diligence in ensuring that, I direct the next question to Dr. Khiok. In your role now in setting these systems for South Sudan, where do you feel the most effort and the most impact can be had to ensure better gender equity through the education system?
Thank you very much. First, I would like to say that my minister, Madame Awudan Achil, was supposed to be here, and I could see from the photo, my photo, her name was written in Arabic, so I'm sure she is here in the spirit. I want to identify myself with His Excellency's remarks about the importance of girls' education in our societies. Now, I think sometimes we need to do the basic things. So, for example, we have enshrined in our constitutions and in our laws the importance of girls' education. That is, education should be free and compulsory. I think we need to also make sure these rules or measures, as said by His Excellency, are enacted or are put into practice. So what we have done is we have capacitated school structures. So for example, PTAs, school management committees, to be able to understand these laws, to be able to help the school administration and the school communities to enroll girls in the schools. We work closely with a British government project called Girls Education in South Sudan, which train teachers and train parents on these kinds of laws. Safety of girls is also important, as said by the minister, that by His Excellency the President, because sometimes you find girls cannot walk this distance to go to school because of safety issues. But I think also there is an importance on role models. So for example, in South Sudan, we have a vice president who is a female. And in the region, of course, one of the successor for the president is a female president we have in Tanzania. So these are very important, I think, role models that we should have in our society. So in our constitution, in recognition of the role played by women in the liberation of South Sudan, we have 35% positions in public offices are allocated to female. So in the parliament, you find a quarter of the members of parliament are female, and an equivalent number of them also in the cabinet. So we'll try to make sure that female are represented in the government. And because of the importance of girls' education, our minister decided, the cabinet decided to reopen the schools even during the COVID, because the results that we were getting were that many girls were getting pregnant, girls were being married off, and of course, we remember the issues of poverty and so forth and so forth. So schools are functioning in South Sudan as we speak, unlike many other countries in the world. So yes, we have the policies, but I think the most important thing is how do we enact, how do we put in practice these policies. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. On that same thought, we have Dr. Kumbu, who is joining us virtually. With the mission of the ISESCO being to primarily promote education to both boys and girls, irrespective of gender, how particularly is the role of ISESCO now being furthered to support girls' education and advocate for those changes in the practices to see that change?
Yes, thank you so much for this wonderful space of dialogue. I will speak in French. Excellence.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you everybody for being here. I would like to let you know that I will speak on behalf of the Director General of ISESCO, Dr. Ahmed Salim Al-Malik, and I would like simply to say that when it comes to this problematic, I have two messages to give that I would like to share with you, two main ideas. It is true, I agree totally with what the participants have said. First of all, we need to have a society where the human capital is entirely at the heart of all development challenges. A society that is capable of producing value, a society that ensures that human values are a priority when it comes to solidarity and peace, a society that gives priority to diversity and equity, a society. This is why the UNESCO had this initiative called the Societies We Want. And coming from here, it is important and essential to have programs and projects that put girls and boys at the heart of this process, of the educational process. For example, having them assigned as ambassadors of peace, because let's not forget that by building peace in our societies, that we can give also a space to girls and to women. It's true, for a long time, since 1948 and the Declaration of Human Rights, that stipulated that every human being has right to education, including girls. But today we are far from that. Most of the women are analphabet today. 11 million girls are not attending school. Of course, this was enhanced by the impact of the COVID. Also, there are violations from which suffer girls. So things have to be done first at the level of laws. Today, it's very important to take care of laws and regulations that provide a space for these challenges that the girls are faced. For example, discrimination against women. I think that this discrimination against women is not tackled, especially when it comes to girls. We need to have laws at the local level and to implement these laws in each country. There are good practices. The UNESCO is trying to value these practices when it comes also to curriculums. We are also tackling the environments at school. How can a teacher organize in his classroom in order to ensure to give a role and a space to girls in the classroom? How to have schools open and also address social issues at schools. We need open pedagogies. Without these, today, especially with all the ITC, we need to address the issue of the private sector, especially when it comes to the media. The media uses mainly stereotypes against women and against girls. And so for us, at the center of the whole process, we need to put girls, and we need to take also, we need to focus on the scientific approach. We need to address this issue, this scientific issue of education for girls and women. This is the only way to build a society, a peaceful society, and also equal society where girls have space. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor. As we think about now that space that women require in order to truly be able to demonstrate their talents, my next question goes to Imtithal Mahmoud. As from your perspective now, as the only representative woman on this panel, I'm actually the second to be here in person. From your perspective as a woman and a storyteller, what are the potential activities and actions that women can and should play in order to break through these structures?
It's really funny because it's interesting when we were told about this panel, the thing that intrigued me the most wasn't the fact that we're talking about girls' education, because everyone in this room, everyone who's here at Rewired will already understand that we should educate girls and we should educate women, right? But the thing that intrigued me was the idea of this cultural shift, the kind of cultural shift that we need to create to actually implement that change, and that's what you're touching on right now. I think that the actions that we need to take as humans and not only as women start very, very early on. I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and there's 3 boys and 3 girls. And the way that we grew up in my household, both my parents are medical, was that we were not in competition with one another, but we understood that any success of any individual member of the family and in society in general is a success of all of humanity. So for us, this cultural shift that we need to create is to make people understand that when women succeed, it's the entire world that is succeeding, and that a woman's success does not take away from the success of men. It's really interesting because a lot of times they even teach us that if you want to break through these ceilings, you have to compete with boys or compete with men. But you're just competing with all of humanity and with yourself in general. So I think that what we need to do is actually demonstrate that we not only can be role models for one another as women, but we can be role models for all of humanity. How many little boys do you ask who your role model is, and they give you the answer of a woman? My younger brothers do, but not everyone else does. So that's my simple answer. More pragmatically, I think what we can do is very, very early on, try to not only bring people into education, but retain them by doing the different things that everyone on the panel has talked about so far. For instance, making it a safer environment to learn, making it less of a stigma to want to pursue higher levels of education, because we see it a lot in Sudan and in other places. I grew up in the US as well. We see it over there as well, where until maybe high school or college, you're really encouraged. But then if you want to be a career woman or go on to higher levels of education, they'll say, well, what about family? What about this? So I think that my answer is essentially that we need to create the sort of cultural shift that makes it not only healthy and wonderful for a woman to succeed in all aspects of life, education for all of life, but also makes it clear that when we succeed, it's all of society that succeeds.
Very, very, very good point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
دكتور محمد السؤال
The second question, what are the means that would support girl education in societies, and how can we be an incubator for educating girls, especially in the context of the SGTs? Peace be upon you all. I will start from the Arabic Report for Sustainable Development 2030, which discusses the Arabic region according to the 4th SDG. There's a hope that this would be achieved in 2030. The report also states that there's a frustration or a failure, and it sheds light on some obstacles in facing or overcoming these challenges. Are we going to achieve the goal in 2030? The report also asked questions with regards to culture and society. I will rephrase some of the clauses. Is there a need to change or to have a political, cultural shift in order to promote girl education. All societies in the world has certain givens related to their values or historic values and traditional values. So when we talk about girl education, especially with regards to the SDGs, these negate or are contradictory to what these societies have prone to believe. It's very important that in order to promote the girl education, we have to change the mindset, because unless we do so, we will reach a dead end. And these societies will feel threatened and feel that their values and principles and traditionals will be threatened because they are very convinced with them. What will happen next? If we talk about the SDGs, we have noble goals. They are honorable goals. But if we don't let these societies buy in to what we're trying to sell, they will feel that their history, their legacy, and their tradition are threatened. And this is how they reject the whole idea and the whole notion of educating girls. They try to shy away from anything that they feel threatened by. The other direction is to look in depth to those cultural values and historic values of these societies. These cultures or these societies, they derive their beliefs and their values from religious bases, regardless of the religion. Be it Muslim, Christianity, or Buddhist, doesn't matter. If we look in depth to the Islamic religion, it encourages greatly to educate girls. And this started at a very early age. At the first beginning of Islam, you have scholars, the legislators, men of letters, and we have Lady Aisha, who's the Prophet Muhammad's wife. And when we remind these societies with such principles or such anecdotes, we bring them back to their roots and to their own cultures. And this is how we create a common ground and a common understanding that will promote achieving the fourth SDG, because it tallies with what they are viewing now as part of their own culture. We're pushing the society to encourage educating girls without having to lose any of their beliefs or values, and without creating any kind of isolation between these societies and other parts of the world. This has been the main concern for many countries, especially the developed countries. The identity or the social identity is one of the biggest problems that all countries, especially developed countries, think about. Many countries or many nations are afraid for their national identity, and this is why they're reimagining these values and principles that they have been brought up to believe, and trying to avoid the global values that they're trying to avoid. This applies to Western and Eastern countries. We should create an understanding based on our beliefs and understanding. And if we find this common ground from within, we will implement or at least establish policies to fulfill the fourth goal of the SDGs by 2030.
But Dr. Muhammad just touched on right now were, some of the challenges that are faced by these societies in implementing various educational efforts. So from your lens now, as you think about these different educational systems and financing these new programs, what do you find to be the biggest challenge in implementing these programs and launching them in these different countries across your 90 member states?
Well, GP is working in this. GP is working in more than 90 countries globally. Of course, in the developing world, it is the largest partnership and the largest fund supporting development of basic education in the low income and low middle income countries in the world. Of course, differences differ, challenges differ from country to country, but when it comes to girls' education, of course, in most of these countries, as I mentioned earlier, girls are disadvantaged. Of course, there has been progress. We should not get to a point where we think there's been no progress at all. No, there's been a lot of progress, but there are also challenges. In a number of countries, the progress has been fragile, as we have seen. The case of Afghanistan, there was progress. There's been change of government. Now it's a comment. So the one progress is when there are changes of policies. When policies are not predictable, it is one of those areas of progress. So we are working with partners and friends to see what we can do really to help the girls in Afghanistan exercise their rightful right to get education. So these are some of those problems. Of course, there are problems of governance, which when we have countries that are having those problems, we sit down with them, identify the challenges, and agree on the modalities of working together to resolve some of these. There are, of course, other problems that are technical. We also sit down and see, because we are a partnership, there are things which we in GP can do, but there are also things that partners can do. There are partner things that Dubai Cares can do. So we talk to Dr. Tarb and say, this is your baby, handle it. So this is how we've been really working. We're working with the 9 countries, but the core of GP's work is education to girls. On that one, there is no compromise.
No, definitely. It's actually quite unfortunate to see how so many good efforts can be undermined by volatility and changes in these political systems, as you mentioned, in Afghanistan and in other places as well. My next question I'm going to direct to Dr. Koyok. How can we then build better educational systems that are more resilient to such volatile changes?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I think what the example of Afghanistan highlight for us is that we need to keep our eye on the ball, in the sense that the gains that we have made could be lost in just a moment. So I think that makes us, to be able to have put on another hat, an activist hat. All of us should be activists of education, and particularly girls' education. So we need to empower all the stakeholders. I'm thinking here about, the parliaments, the politicians, the teachers, and all those people that make decisions, because we need to empower them with the laws, of course, but also with the resources. We need technical support for these people so that they are able to know what are their rights. Because education, at the end of the day, is a right, is a human right. So there is an importance for us, I think, to be activists, not only people who are responsible for implementation of policies or teachers. We have to be activists so that we ensure that these rights are not lost. And we must be able to work together. All the stakeholders must come together to do this. So GPE is very important. Also, localism is important in terms of being activists. So I'm not only the undersecretary, but at times I act as a parent, as somebody responsible in this kind of things. So activism, I think, is one thing that we shouldn't forget.
And I think that's a wonderful note to end this panel on. Yes, it is our responsibility that we remain the activists that these future generations depend on. And everyone in this room is an activist in their own right. I know that I would like to consider myself one as well. And that activism goes beyond the systemic changes and being a part of policy. An activist is being able to stand up, and an activist is being able to call out our unconscious biases at times. Those unconscious biases are at the fundamental framework of what leads to systemic change. So let us all remember that we are activists and that we can all make a difference in any way that we can.
And as we, I'd just like to add the final thing, which is just to say, I know you made a joke earlier about me being the only woman on the panel. I think the way that we make the change really happen is by having men invest as well, and all of us invest in together. And I think it's really, really important to not only work on girls' education, but women's education, women's employment initiatives, and all these other things. I'm the granddaughter of an illiterate woman because women were not allowed to learn in Sudan back when I was then. And then having to help my grandmother learn to read and things like that has taught me a lot about how it is we can change the entire society. So invest on every single level of women's success, and you'll have the world change.
Important to note that women obviously make up half of the population, so to your point, being able to work together hand in hand is critical for us to see the change that we would like to be a part of. Thank you all for your attention during the session, and I look forward to further conversations and how we can become better activists and work together to change that paradigm.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm just going to have
Pleasure.
going to have an intervention from the floor, please. I was listening to the panel, and all of them, 100%, including yourself, mentioned 100% what we need to do. We need policy change, President Kikwete, and that's what we've been working on for the past 7 years, if not 8, together with a partnership. And of course, we need mind shift, change into societies and values. I believe into values a lot because everything starts with values. If we instill, I'm not going to go in the negative side, if we don't instill the right values from the beginning to the children, whether those are boys or girls, and we don't give them the right perception of girls' education or the right for women to prosper in life, they will not understand it later on. So this is not a change that I will do at my age or your age, President Kikwete, or you, Imtithal. I don't think we can do that much change. I think we can, but we have to rely on the future generations to do that. We are setting the stone. We have already set the stone. Now GP has taken it to different strides. We have Plan International taking it into different strides. They've been existing. We did a lot of programs, whether it's in Philippines, South Sudan, Yemen, Pakistan. We did in Central America. We did a lot of girls' education. But without policy change, Your Excellency, I agree with you 100%. It's not going to work. And I just have one more point, which is, you see that girl that didn't get education, she will end up getting pregnant or she will get married at the age of 14, hence growing up to become a mother, and will not see the importance of getting her children being educated. But taking the same girl, educating her, she will not get married early. She will get married as an adult. She will choose whether she wants higher education, or she wants to get a job, or she will be an entrepreneur, or to become a leader. Then she will get married, then she will get children, and then she will ensure that all her children will have to get education because she went through that path. And that is one mother educating all children, because mothers take care of children, not fathers mainly. The majority are mothers. And if one mother can educate all her children, and if we can get all the girls in the world today teaching them that, and all the mothers of the future, they take their children and they teach their children. We're talking about 2 generations. If from today we teach all girls in the world 2 generations only, then we will end up having all children in the world being educated. So do you agree that if you educate a child, you educate a nation? I don't agree, because if you educate a girl child, you will educate the whole planet by 20 years.
So that's definitely a more powerful note to end this on. Truly, here we are. I mean, we spoke of activism. We spoke of the power of the one girl child to truly move the world, to move the nation. We all of us here in this room together, when we think about our individual roles in ensuring that we are aligning the next generation with that set of progressive values, to ensure that we are not only talking about that change, but embedding it within our systemic value systems. That is what will drive the change. Thank you all, and thank you, Dr.
Thank you.